Hi, and welcome back to my channel, where I talk all about courageous leadership and how you can lead with courage, strength, emotional intelligence, and authenticity. Now, last week we spoke about the art of receiving feedback. And I gave you some really good tips of how you can get better at receiving feedback gracefully and stay open for the message and for the information that you can use to improve and grow. Today I want to talk about how we can deliver feedback effectively. The problem with delivering feedback is that it is always a difficult situation. Not just for the person on the receiving end, but even us as leaders, we know how hard it is, and we get nervous and feel vulnerable and awkward as well when we enter a discussion where we have to deliver feedback. The importance of practicing this, though, is that we want to deliver feedback and add value to that employee or the team member and the organization, either our own business or the organization that we work for. And to add value, we need to master the art of delivering feedback. Leaders are often not trained enough, and they don't really have support on how delivering feedback. Now, if I think about my career and my leadership journey, I definitely was thrown into it. I was not supported. I had to figure this out by myself. So the first few sessions where I had to do performance reviews and deliver feedback felt really awkward and difficult. But over time, I kind of built up my own competencies, my skills. I did a lot of research and a lot of reading. And I want to give you today some key tips of how you can make it easier for you to deliver feedback that your employees can actually use, and that also will be easier for them to take on board. So that for both of you, it's a very valuable experience, and your relationship actually can be stronger of it. Because feedback is so valuable. So let's go into it. Firstly, I want to talk about some baselines when you start to deliver feedback. And here I want to go back and refer back to the work of Brené Brown and what she mentions in her book, Daring Greatly. Now, in the book, she gives us a checklist for how to be ready to deliver feedback. And one of the key elements in that list is that you need to be ready to sit next to the person you deliver feedback. Sit next to them at the table and put the problem in front of you rather than in between you sitting across a desk. When you sit next to a person, you're removing these artificial barriers, and you're going to make it much easier to be on the same page and look at the problem together and find solutions. Another important part is that for any situation or critical situation or problem, you as a leader do play a role as well. You have responsibility for any situation because your actions, your behaviors will have contributed to that information, that situation. So you need to make sure that you own and you're ready to own your part in it. You also need to be able to be open for the other person and for them to respond and explain the situation from their perspective, or hear their opinions or their views or their suggestions. So really make sure that you're open for them to speak as well. And lastly, don't use shame when you bring up a problem. Don't blame the person. Don't make them feel small. Don't criticize them so that they feel ashamed. Because if we make another person feel ashamed, then they will shut down. And the whole discussion is not going to go anywhere. And it's going to leave both of you feeling miserable. And this feeling of miserable could actually end up being anger and frustration as well. So it can really have a high impact on your relationship in a very negative way. So don't use shame. So how do we actually package up the conversation, the message? I really love to take a strengths perspective when we deliver feedback. Genuinely, I believe that everybody wants to do a good job. And they are doing a good job. There's so many things everybody's doing well. So if you observe something that can be improved, take the strengths perspective. Because taking a strengths perspective will look at their competencies, their capabilities. And it will look at the problem from the angle of strength and possibilities. So how can they actually approach the challenge next time with their strength? So if you deliver feedback, start to look at, okay, what did they do really well? What were their strengths? And then start to look at, okay, what are the things that they can build upon? What are the areas for opportunity and growth? And right away provide them with a suggestion of how they can use that strength for their growth. And when you do that, be very careful of the word but. The word but is a very, very difficult word to use when you give feedback, and you should avoid it altogether. Because what it does is it erases everything that you said before that sentence. For example, if you say, "Hey Paul, you did a really good job at the presentation, but you forgot to discuss strategy XYZ." As soon as you said but, he would have forgotten that you said that he did a good job, and he would only focus on, "I didn't talk about strategy XYZ." And that will be in his head, and he will think that he did actually do a really bad job. Instead, you could say, using the strengths approach, "Hey Paul, you did a really good job with that presentation. And next time, you could actually build on your communication skills to make sure that you go in the details of strategy X, Y, and Z. The way you describe and explain complicated items is really useful and powerful for the other people to understand our desired outcome of strategy X, Y, and Z." Now, in this example, I used the word and I used the strength of Paul to describe what he could do better. In this example, Paul would feel encouraged, acknowledged, and seen and appreciated for his strength. And he would start to look at the way he can actually do even a better job by looking at his strength. He's not going to feel offended. He's not going to feel shamed. He is going to feel empowered because he knows he has a strength he can build upon. And another great model I want to suggest to you to use is the SBI module. Now, this was created by the Center for Creative Leadership, and it talks about situation, behavior, and impact. So when you deliver feedback, start to describe the situation. Make it very specific to when was it, because generalized feedback is never valuable. If we generalize feedback, we end up in the shame lane, and we start to say, "You always do that, you always do this." Be specific. Say, "Last week in the meeting XYZ, you did this and this." Point out the behavior. That's the B in SBI. Point out the behavior and say, "What did that person do?" And then describe the impact. When you did this, this was the impact it had. In that way, you make it very specific and for the other person to understand. But then start to look at how can you make suggestions and work with that person to look at how can they actually build on their strength to make sure that they improve their behavior or they get better strategies to handle the situation differently in the next time. So keep that in mind. Go in from a strengths perspective. Don't use shame. Sit next to the person. Acknowledge that you both have a part to play in any situation. And lastly, a really, really important point is don't just wait to give constructive feedback. Give positive feedback regularly. If you see a person do a good job, say something. They don't know that you see it. They want to be acknowledged. If we acknowledge people in what they do well and in their strength, they're going to feel so motivated and energized to do an even better job. They're going to feel seen. They're going to feel happy. They won't feel stressed because they know they're doing a good job and they're on the right track. And the SBI model works really, really well with positive feedback as well, because you can describe the positive impact their behavior had, and then you can discuss strategies of how they can build up on that positive. How can they do more of that? More of the good thing, more of their strength. I hope you found this helpful. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on my next videos, and leave any comments below or questions. Feel free to reach out and let me know how you go with these tips. See you next time. Thanks for watching.